Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Mike Swanson on behalf of the Law Practice Channel, and we're bringing to you some special guests today to talk about how to get great results for your clients during the pandemic. So let's get started. Today's webinar is brought to you by Advocate Capital, purveyors of the AdvoTrack Case Expense Funding Service. Full disclosure, I'm the CEO and Chairman of Advocate Capital. Also, a quick disclaimer for you. This webinar is for informational purposes only, is not intended to provide and should not be relied upon for tax, legal, accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before taking any actions. All right, that's the housekeeping things out of the way now. Let's meet our guests. So first joining us is Joe Russo, and Joe is a very experienced plaintiff lawyer up in New Hampshire, Massachusetts area. He's owner and managing partner of Injury Law Center. He's a top 10 attorney under 40 in the state of New Hampshire and a New England Super Lawyers Rising Star. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
How are things in New Hampshire today?
Things are excellent in New Hampshire.
Excellent. Thanks again for joining us. Next up is Kathy Harrington-Sullivan. Kathy is a partner at Barrett Farahany in Atlanta, Georgia. She's a registered nurse, an electrical engineer, overachiever, and a registered neutral. And Kathy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I got to ask you what a registered neutral is.
Mediator.
Mediator. Okay, I'm still learning, which is good at my age to be learning new things. And lastly, joining us today is Lauren Checki from New Orleans, Louisiana. She's managing partner of Louisiana and director of operations at Hair Shunnarah Trial Lawyers. She is a Louisiana Super Lawyers Rising Star and also Louisiana State Bar Association statewide Modest Means Commission. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to have a conversation about getting great results during the pandemic. And that's something that a lot of people have struggled with, right? Many lawyers were set up and ready to go remote when this all happened. Many weren't, and some are still struggling due to a variety of issues. And we have known that your law firms are all very effective and have been effective right through the pandemic and closures and openings and things like that. So we thought it made sense to hear from you how you've maintained excellent service through this crazy period of time. So if we can go around first, and maybe you could just tell us a bit about your practice, what kind of cases, maybe how many employees you have, and if maybe when you went remote, something like that. So Joe, would you go first?
Yeah, sure. So we're a plaintiff's personal injury law firm. We handle wrongful death, medical malpractice actions. And it's myself, two other attorneys, a couple of paralegals, and a receptionist. So it's a boutique firm. And we went remote, well, when the governor's orders came down, which would be early March. But there was always going to be someone rotating in the office because we considered ourselves essential according to the governor's orders. So there would just be one person coming in just to make sure the place is still up and running for short periods of time. And now we are back in full time, but the work schedule is a lot more non-traditional. It's not 9 to 5, and people are a lot more productive in my office. And it's been a great opportunity, actually, this whole situation with COVID.
Yeah, fantastic. Lauren, how about you?
Okay, so we have about 60 people spread out over 20 offices in 9 states. We focus primarily on property casualty law and personal injury law, all plaintiff work, obviously. We have other affiliates and partners in 49 of the 50 states. We're still missing Alaska. So if you know anyone,
okay. I do.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
But so
I'll
we
make a note.
shut down back in mid-March with the governor's orders. And by shut down, I mean, we were still running 24/7. We were just not running in our physical downtown New Orleans headquarters, right? Since that time, we've slowly trickled back into the office. We have some people on some flexible work schedules, but you know, in this business, once the sheriff starts serving again, you can't have nobody in the office, right? Yeah. So we've adapted and we've changed some things and we've made some things more flexible over time.
Great. We'll get more into that in a moment. But Kathy, can you give us some background on your firm?
Yeah, we are a plaintiff's employment law, and we represent only employees. We don't do any defense work. We've recently expanded our practice to include some serious injury and wrongful death as well. But historically, we are an employment law firm. We have about 25 employees, and as you and I were talking about before the broadcast started, we were operating much of our business remotely even before COVID. So it was very easy for us to make the transition to 100% remote.
Right. Excellent. Well, like I said before, we've known that you're all really have just shined through this pandemic, not just survived, but thrived. So let's ask some specific questions about that. So Lauren, can we start with you? What's the number one most important technology that has enabled your success over the past 5 months?
So I'll tell you that, but I mean, for me, generally, the most important thing is having technology and having the right technology. And ultimately, there's not just one piece, it's having pieces that all work with one another, because there's no one program that does everything. But if you're making me choose one, I'm probably going to go with Filevine. It's our case management software. I know a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys are familiar with it. Everything within it is automated. So we can, it has a texting function. So each client gets a dedicated phone number within it. It saves all our file documents. It has internal communications so we can set tasks and communicate with one another. And it's such an integral part of making sure that everyone in the office knows exactly what is going on with every case, and our clients know as well at any given time. Before that, we used to do these huge, lengthy team meetings, and it's not that I don't like to sit around and chit chat with everyone, but it's literally sitting down for an entire day to say, okay, what's the status of this? What's the status of this? And now I can pull up any case file at any time and see in real time who's been communicating with the client, what the status is, what the next step is, who has their tasks done. You can't ask for anything more than that, especially when you're remote.
Yeah, and that's a cloud-based system?
It is a cloud-based system.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I was supposed to be a speaker at their event this month out in Salt Lake, and I was looking forward to seeing the mountains in the summertime, but that got canceled. So maybe, hopefully next year we'll be out there, because we have a lot of clients who use Filevine more and more. We actually provide training for Filevine, TrialWorks, and what's the other big one, Needles, to help our clients integrate. So cool. Kathy, can we hear from you next on technology? What's the number one thing that you've been using?
Sure. Well, like I said before, this is not sort of new territory for us. So we were, I would say, 95% paperless, and have been for years. And we have a proprietary case management software system that we developed and have built on over the years.
Wow.
The one piece of technology I think that has helped in this was that I would say around January, before the pandemic ever hit, we installed a firm intranet, and it has been absolutely wonderful. We use Blink.
What's that called?
Blink. There are a lot of intranet options out there, and I did exhaustive research before I selected them. I like their responsiveness, and we can share documents with each other. We can have virtual meetings. We can talk to each other all day long, and then some. So it's really, in some ways, has connected us more than we were connected pre-pandemic. We love it.
Awesome. Blink, I wrote that one down. I'll check them out, because we don't have our own intranet. Maybe we should have that. Joe, how about you? What technology has helped you all the most?
Yeah, sure. And it's not specific to the law practice. A lot of people use it, of course, is Zoom.
Yeah.
We're very litigation heavy, and so we've been doing a ton of depositions on Zoom, mediations on Zoom, and it's been fantastic. Once you kind of figure out how to use the platform, we take very intricate depositions of expert witnesses and so forth, know how to work with documents without fumbling around. And we've been really productive in that regard to keep our litigation cases up and moving, especially considering access to the courts is limited, if not nil.
Yeah, it's been challenging. Yeah, we're big Zoomers. And one of my favorite things, twice a month, we get the entire company, all 52 employees, on we call it a huddle, where we just talk about updates, what's happening with the company. And I love seeing like the Brady Bunch thing, with 52 people. It's the only time I get to see people anymore. I miss seeing them in person. Well, let's talk about some just nuts and bolts things. You may be back in the office now, partially, if not, but how have you handled the logistics of inbound and outbound mail and FedEx? Kathy, would you go first on that?
So we have an office admin. She goes in at least once a week, usually more than that. We try to limit the number of people who do go in. I know that sometimes the paralegals rotate through that if she's got something else going on, but mostly our office admin is handling that. And that way we limit everybody's exposure. And of course,
Yeah.
you know, we wipe down the office and, you know, and just make sure that the office is safe if anybody other than her has to come in. So, that's really pretty much it. We've got people rotating through that duty.
And Joe, how about you?
Yeah, so my state in New Hampshire and Massachusetts does pretty well as far as COVID is concerned. So what we were doing when the shutdown order came in is we would have someone, at least one person, rotating into the office at any given time to pick up mail and so forth. So we were able to retrieve mail without any issues.
So you didn't have to do any forwarding and things like that?
No, something as simple as, if someone is not able to come in at that time to pick up the mail, like if they just cross paths with the mailman, and we just left a box out front. I mean, my whole building was essentially shut down. Everyone was non-essential in my building, other businesses. So we just felt comfortable with a mailbox outside, and you have to, we didn't miss anything.
You gotta innovate a little bit. Lauren, how about your firm?
So even before the pandemic, we were pretty paperless. Now we're about as paperless as you can be, but our normal protocol was we had one staff member designated to go down to our mailbox downstairs and retrieve the mail and then scan it and, deliver it to everybody electronically. So really the only thing that changed during the height of the pandemic was that staff member had to travel to the office to get the mail every day. But it really, that part of it really hasn't affected us largely. It was just a matter of, being a little more careful with making sure that things got out, making sure they got out the way they needed to.
Thank you. And by the way, I'm trying to rotate who goes first so that you're not always going last. Because, when you're sharing ideas, it's like, oh, he stole my idea. I was going to say that or whatever. So I'm going to try to do my best at that. But my memory's not great. If I don't do it right, please forgive me. Let's talk about intakes. How have you been handling intakes, especially when the first lockdown orders came? And it might be Joe's turn to go first. I can't remember. Joe, would you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I think that's the most important question, frankly. And, intakes were down significantly, which was expected. The intakes that we did have, a lot of people, new clients, they want to meet your attorney face to face, but given the climate of the pandemic, I think they were a lot more willing to accept mail-in packages for intake forms, retainer agreements, and so forth. So we really tried to limit face-to-face interaction as much as possible. So that was the logistics of it. But what the whole process really forced us to focus on was quality control. It really kind of allowed us to take a deep breath and not be so much focused on volume, but hunting for big cases and big whales. So I took the opportunity, and my staff did, to really push our referral relationships. And so we were able to get referred several large cases without having to worry about a very long, dragged out intake process, just screening cases, hunting for nuggets of gold and casting a wide net. And it's been tremendous. I'm really kind of fortunate to be forced in that situation to focus on the bigger matters.
Yeah, kind of a silver lining, I guess, in the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Lauren, how about you?
So we have a customized system that was built for us for intake. We have 2 call centers that are proprietary to the firm. They're not, outsourced call centers. They're our call centers. We have 24/7 staffed phones, text, and chat. And the biggest, our biggest emphasis was on making sure that nobody's call went unanswered. Even if we were not the right person or the right firm ultimately to help that person, we didn't want anybody to be on hold. We didn't want anybody to have to wait more than a few rings. We didn't want anybody to feel like there wasn't somebody on the other end of the line, no matter what their problem was, what the time of day, because people are stressed enough during the pandemic. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, most of what we do is property casualty, it's personal injury, it's people who have either lost their home or their business or had some sort of epic disaster befall them. And so
Right.
they're already in a precarious situation. And then there's COVID on top of it. So what we don't want is somebody to not feel like there's somebody there to help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how did you logistically handle or have been handling intake if you can't meet face to face?
So, you know, a lot of our clients have actually preferred to not do face to face, though there's video options. You know, obviously I didn't use it as my piece of technology, but I spend hours a day on Zoom right now. You know, there a lot of phone, a lot of you know, and people have been really good sports about it, right? I mean, you know, we want to stay protected. We want to make sure our people are protected. We want to make sure our clients are protected, and they want to make sure that they're protected. They're taking care of their families. So we haven't really had a lot of pushback of, oh no, I have to come in, because I think people on the whole are realizing so many of these things, it's great to see somebody's face, but there are other ways to do it, you know, without being 1 foot in front of them. So
Yeah.
a lot of video.
Yeah, I know what you mean, like this one.
Yeah.
Kathy, how has intake changed, if at all, for you during the pandemic? How are you handling it?
Changed at all. We have always done our initial consultation by phone. I think the thing that really makes us different than most firms is that all of our initial consultations are done by an attorney. So you'll get 20 minutes of complimentary time having an attorney assess your case. And even if it's a case we can't take, we're going to advise you about what your next best steps are. And if it's a case we know a trusted attorney could take, then we're going to try to find a home for you and for your case. So we've always worked very hard at intake, and we just continue to do that. Now, our second stage intake, where we would normally then meet with the person face to face, if it's a case that we take, we've just pretty much, like Lauren said, just found other ways to do it, either meeting over Zoom meetings, video calls, or really, you know, even before pandemic, we signed a lot of people up without having met them face to face, just judging on the facts of their case. And eventually we will meet with them. But as she said, people are happy not to meet in person right now. I've only had a couple of folks demand that we open the office, and we just politely tell them we don't feel like we want to put our staff at risk or you. And, you know, until this thing blows over, there are just going to have to be other ways to handle it.
Yep. I think people have been pretty understanding through the whole thing. We're all in the same boat, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Regardless where you are in the world, even. So before I ask my next question, I want to say to our viewers, we appreciate you. Thanks for being here. You can ask questions anytime you want in the questions box, and those will pop up, and we'd be happy to entertain your questions with the panel. Okay. Let's change gears a little bit and talk about staff. And we all know that a law firm's only as good as the overall team. And I'm wondering what you've been doing to keep your staff engaged. Maybe the staff who weren't working at home before, and suddenly, boom, they're working at home. Lauren, would you go first?
Okay, so it wasn't difficult for us because we had great ideas and we have a really good firm culture. It was actually difficult for us because we're such a family and we're pretty tightly bonded here. And I genuinely missed going into the office, not because I missed my stuff, but because I missed being around the people that I've surrounded myself with, right? So we use Slack internally for communications, and we would start off every morning with, you know, sort of a Slack meeting just to, you know, 15, 20 minutes, just make sure everybody on the team knew what they were doing, let everybody bounce ideas, questions. And we were pretty consistent throughout the day, but, you know, we're a fun firm. We're kind of known down here for being a fun firm. So like we usually, when we have our summer associates, for instance, we'll rent out the local bowling alley, Rock and Bowl, for, you know, a couple lanes, cater a little party and take everybody bowling and get beers. That we couldn't do that this summer.
No.
So let's see, one of my favorite nights of the summer, we did a Zoom happy hour for everybody. And Galen and I, we didn't tell anybody what we were doing. We set it for 6 o'clock. We called up Domino's Pizza, and we literally had a pizza delivered to everybody's house at the same time. So
Oh my
while
gosh.
we're on, like about 15 minutes after we get on the Zoom, everybody's doorbells are ringing. They're like, oh, who's at the door? And, if like, we know our people, right? So if they have a family, we send enough pizza for the whole family. So, so we were like, come back, bring the family. So it ended up being like a giant pizza party for the firm and the entire family, but by Zoom. So consistently, we've tried to do little things like that. We've done a couple happy hours. We've sent pizzas. We've, not a few days goes by where I don't check in with, people saying, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Can I do anything for you? Because I think firms have done a really good job throughout the pandemic of making sure that they stay connected to their clients. And for us, our clients are only served as well as we serve the people who work with us. So, it was very important for us to make sure that we were keeping all of those connections.
Yeah. Okay. So how many pizzas was that?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. It was a lot of pizzas. They were good though.
Somebody had to phone all those orders in, right?
I'm sure Domino's wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah, like what is going on? Was it all New Orleans?
New Orleans and the surrounding areas. Yeah.
It's like we had the most crazy rush at dinner time last night. You'll never believe it. All at 6 o'clock. That's funny. Kathy, how about you? What have you been doing to keep folks engaged remotely?
I go back to the Blink idea again. It not only allows us to share documents and do business, but it also lets you do social posts and, shout outs for birthdays. And we did make an attempt at a happy hour at one time, but I think that kind of went by the wayside a little bit.
I've been to a few of them, not yours, but Zoom happy hours.
And I think, we've also, made it where we streamline our meetings so that we're not just meeting to be meeting. I mean, we understand that everybody's trying to stay productive and trying to, stay busy, and working from home takes a little bit of extra focus for, sometimes. So we've tried to streamline our meetings so that we meet about things that really need to be talked about and not just meet to be meeting. But, then there's also the fun stuff that we post and the memes and all the funny stuff we post to try to keep each other sane.
Yeah, stay sane. It's been an incredible 5 months. Well, Joe, what have you been doing to keep your staff engaged and productive?
Yeah, so I have a smaller team, a tighter team, and so it's a lot easier to control the culture because it's a small office. So everyone that I work with, I trust quite a bit. They're all been with me for enough time that I don't really have to worry about motivating them so much. So I think they really appreciated the flexibility and autonomy to manage their own personal lives, especially when COVID was happening during the school year and childcare with kids not being able to go to school was a really big issue.
Oh, yeah.
And so I found that they've been really, really productive because they're able to manage their own personal lives and give them the flexibility to do so. There was really no deliberate effort to, maintain communication in order to keep them motivated and productive. They just kind of did so on their own because I really think they appreciated their freedom a little bit.
Yeah, at Advocate, we have 52 employees and people have always been asking to work from home. I didn't think it could be done, but we did it. And there are some real positives in that flexibility for people and freedom to work out in the middle of the day or whatever seems to be something people are enjoying. So I'm going to ask, have insurance companies changed their tactics during this time? And let's see, I think it's Kathy's turn to go first.
I don't really have a lot to say on this one. I talked to some of my litigators to get their feedback, and I'm not hearing any feedback that makes me think anything is really standing out to anyone. So I'm going to.
Hey, that's good. That's good. How about you, Joe?
I found, and I hate to say this because it's being recorded, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I've experienced it being a lot loose with money. in a favorable way.
Wow.
Yeah. So, claims were down because less people were driving for several months. So a lot of carriers just had a lot of cash.
Okay.
And I feel like they were paying out a lot of claims. What I also found was a lot of the adjusters were working from home. And so, I don't want to overstate, the importance of, the psychological aspect of negotiation and forming bonds with people. But it seemed to be a factor in my case.
Interesting.
Like everyone was kind of in the middle of a really difficult situation. I did a lot of chit chat, small talk that I wouldn't typically do, and kind of made a human connection with the person on the other side of the phone. And I felt like there was a lot of empathy and a lot of willingness to, give some more money to get a resolution. In fact, I had one adjuster whose wife was a ER nurse working in Mass General, so she was really in the thick of it. And my client was a nurse as well. He gave her 15% higher of the case because he wanted to do the right thing. My jaw hit the ground. That's never happened to me.
No kidding.
Yeah. And in terms of, so that's the pre-suit. On the litigation stuff, I feel like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if they feel that you don't have the financial capacity to manage a litigation for a long period of time, if you don't have access to the courts, they're going to leverage that and try to give you a lower offer. But if they feel like you're poised and you're able to see it through, I found that a lot of carriers are willing to reach resolutions because they know they don't want to pay attorney's fees for the next 2 years. And if you're still actively making motions, not for the heck of it, but if you're still actively working up the case, they don't want to do it. So I've been very pleasantly surprised. I thought it would be the opposite, but that was not the case.
I would too. Yeah, it's kind of why I put that question out there, is to see are the black hats still doing their spiel. So, well, that's interesting, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. Lauren, how's it been for you with the insurance companies?
So it's been a little bit of a mixed bag here. I think with respect to our personal injury cases, I mean, obviously, as far as litigation goes, we're not litigating anything right now. I think the first jury trial in Louisiana is going this week, and it's a mesothelioma case because of the urgency requirements. But for the most part, our personal injury settlements seem to be going at sort of the same pace and, about the same amounts as they were before. I don't really feel like that world seems to be running pretty smoothly. Surprisingly, the property casualty insurance companies are being a little bit more difficult. We've had some convenient excuses for behaving badly, if that makes any sense. So, like we've had a couple of homeowners, for instance, who have gotten calls directly from the insurance companies, even though they've received their letter of representation. And then the excuse is, oh, we're working remotely. We must have gotten the numbers confused, or we don't have the firm, we don't have the information. We all know they have the electronic system in front of them, right? That they can see it from home. But so a little bit of that. I mean, nothing too terrible, right? And I'll keep it polite because I know we're all being recorded here, but just like I feel like the people who are going to try to take a little advantage have definitely tried to work that to their favor.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not a fan of insurance companies, but I guess I'm going to take a little encouragement from the fact that Joe and Kathy had at least a neutral, at worst, experience with that. So we have a viewer who has asked a question, so let's take that one next. And do you think law firm offices have become less of a necessity? Would you consider going remote permanently? Joe, would you go first with that?
That's an interesting question because my lease is up in April and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I think it's important to have an office, and it took me about a week of debating this. I think it's important to have an office. I think especially if you have a nice one. I think there's a certain panache of having a nice office when you have a large case and you're trying to sign it. I think there's an element of panache when you're trying to court a referral relationship if you're in a nice office. I think there's an element of panache when you do a mediation in a nice office and the carrier flies in from wherever and you have a really nice office space. I mean, it kind of, the message is success. I hate to sound superficial, but I really think that it plays into that. Now I have a small practice, so it's a lot easier for me to manage that. But I think there's some importance to it. If I had a bigger staff, I would try to leverage more virtual work situations and minimize my footprint for sure. But for me personally, I'm re-signing my lease and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna give my team the opportunity to be more virtual, which I think translates into better production.
Yeah, Advocate, we have 10,000 square feet and a 7-year lease, so I'm kind of bummed right now. Not in the situation to be able to reduce that footprint very easily. So, okay, we're going to go this way on my screen. So Lauren's next.
Okay. Well, so I guess, could we survive? Like, I mean, if we had to pack up tomorrow and just never have a centralized location again, absolutely, we could do it. There is something nice about having an office. I agree with a lot of what Joe said, but from a practical standpoint, it's nice to have a regular place where clients know they can find you, or you can meet with them if you need it. I do, because we're so not only team-based but community-based in our firm, and people, I think, genuinely like coming into the office most days. It's nice to be able to offer that to them. That being said, our employees don't have set hours. We have 2 expectations. One is that you communicate with us, and the second is that you get your work done in the time frame you're supposed to do it. Other than that, I don't mind if you are, on the beach all day and working from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. I mean, it doesn't bother me as long as it gets done efficiently and the client's needs are met and they're taken care of, right?
Yeah, right.
So I have people who leave in the middle of the day to go to a haircut. I have an employee who has a new baby right now who is working from home. I think I've seen him twice since March, and and there's if you can do it, that's great. But at the same time, I like to be able to offer a place for people to go.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, how about you?
Well, we debated this and we actually asked our employees because we are also a small firm and pretty tight knit, and we wanted to have their feedback on what their feelings were about having a space, not having a space. There are people who do like to go into the office. A lot of people find it easier, especially if they have young children at home, to be able to sort of get to that office and be more productive there. And then there are other people who, children or no children, like being at home and are more productive there. So we wanted everybody to have a say. We are going to look probably at reducing our space when the time comes, but we're going to be keeping, conference rooms, meeting areas, possibly the same address if we can swing that. Maybe just a reduction in our office space, because for the most part, people are pretty happy and feel more productive working from home, and we want to, facilitate whatever their thinking is on that. We always want happy employees.
Yeah, I've been too inflexible, and this has forced me to be flexible when I wouldn't have been normally. And I was really wrong about can you be productive remotely? And we'll still have an office, but we might have a smaller office eventually if I can negotiate that.
Mike, could I add one more thing that I forgot to mention?
Please.
So I also feel that this is a market that's conducive to the tenant. And especially with me, that I'm renegotiating my lease. I feel that a lot of landlords are really want to rent space, and they're willing to make a lot of concessions that they wouldn't otherwise have done. And flexibility under these circumstances is king. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to put in termination provisions and long-term lease periods and so forth. So if this thing goes sideways again, you'll have that flexibility. So, you know, even if you're not renegotiating your lease, if I was a business owner, I would want to engage in a dialect with the landlord, because they're hurting. So not do it maliciously, but to understand what's going on out there, and know that you have a lot of leverage in that discussion.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder what's going to happen to the overall commercial office space market going forward. No one really knows, but seems like there's going to be less demand even without COVID, because people half our employees could work from home permanently. So
yeah,
great. So what steps have you taken, or are you taking, or planning to take when it's time to move back in, when the green light's on, I guess, and it's time to move back into those office spaces? And I started with Joe last time, I think. So I think it's Lauren's turn to go first. Did I get that right?
Well, I mean, obviously we're going with all of the expected precautions. We all have masks. I'm in my individual office right now, so I'm not wearing mine, but I'll tell you, if somebody comes in here to meet with me, I'm certainly wearing it. I have my, today is Ruth Bader Ginsburg Day.
All right. That's
I have
awesome.
a whole collection now. It's like part of my wardrobe, right?
Very nice.
You know, but we have masks available to our clients. We're encouraging social distancing. You know I've said it, I'll say it again. We're an incredibly social office. We have taken the kitchen tables and chairs away from the break room. So, you know, I mean, just we're doing what we can to discourage people from congregating. We are still strongly recommending to clients that unless it's absolutely necessary to meet with them in person because we need, you know, like a notarized affidavit or something, you know, all of our meetings are pretty much staying virtual. We're trying to keep things as virtual as possible for the safety of our staff and the safety of our clients. And most people seem agreeable to it. We've had one or two people, obviously, that have had to come in to sign things physically. We've had to notarize them. But just mostly whatever the state and the city is telling us to do.
Yeah, makes sense. It's amazing how fast things change. I talked about those huddles we like to do with 52 people on the screen. Well, we used to do those all in one room. We'd have breakfast together twice a month. You know, it was pretty tight in there. As we've grown, that room seems like I got smaller, but I'm not sure when we're going to do that again. Anyway, Kathy, how about you if we're moving back in? Any tips on things you're going to do or are doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to, you know, make sure that we wipe down surfaces and wear masks and social distancing, and, you know, require any clients that we do meet with to wear masks, and especially at mediations, depositions, that kind of stuff. As far as our employees go, though, our whole thinking is that we're going to continue to listen to them and let them decide what makes them most comfortable. So we looked at reopening at the beginning of August. I mean, a total reopening. And again, we polled our employees to say, what are you going to be comfortable with? And people were happy staying at home, and they weren't comfortable, some of them, with coming in. So we're going to try to do what the CDC guidelines and all the other guidelines are encouraging, and be flexible and listen to our employees and try to cooperate and, you know, try to meet their needs as best we can, so that we don't add to the stress that everybody's feeling through this pandemic. I think that where we settled is that we're going to stay remote until at least the end of the year, and then probably even after that, if I had to guess. But we did it by vote.
It's hard for people like me who are control freaks to not know. You know, it's like, I like to have a plan. And we have a plan, right? And here's how we're going to move it in phases, whatever. But when's it going to start? I don't know. I mean, not until there's a real strong reason to do so. But I like that democratic approach. I think we should do something like that. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I took the same approach as Kathy. Once our governor lifted the stay-at-home order in New Hampshire, I asked my staff what they felt comfortable with, because we were doing this rotating system for a couple of months and it was really working. And they wanted to come back. They kind of wanted a place to go that's quiet, where they could work without distraction and so forth. So, you know, in the beginning, when I heard that they wanted to come back, I wanted to be, and even now, super precautious, right? 'Cause just from an HR standpoint. So, we followed the CDC guidelines very, very strictly. We have a screener to ask, the questions and to make sure no one has a temperature. Someone is responsible for wiping down surfaces. Everyone wipes on their own surface, but someone wipes down, photocopiers and things that a lot of people have their hands on. Masks in common spaces. You don't have to wear your mask in your office. But it's a smaller office, so it's not that difficult. And it's also, I'm not in the major metropolitan environment. We're probably like 40 minutes outside of Boston, 40 minutes outside of, Manchester and Concord. So it's less dense. So it's less of an issue.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, here's another viewer question. How have you handled IT security for employees while working from home, if not using an intranet? Okay, so I'm not technical. I don't know if any of you are, but IT security is important. And if you had it in the office, how have you been able to keep that once y'all moved out? So Kathy, would you go first on that?
So we've moved all of our systems to cloud-based systems, and we actually have a third-party company that manages all of our IT security needs, and they've been very responsive during all this, and for the most part, no complaints.
Yeah, so you don't do it in-house, you just outsource it to someone who's competent.
We used to do in-house for many years, but last year we went to outsourcing it, and we really like the company we're working with. They're doing a great job.
Good timing. Awesome. Joe, how about you? For the folks?
Same thing. We have an IT guy that manages our cloud and the security and all our systems. And I have routine conversations with him, but frankly, I don't get into the weeds with it. I trust him. He's really good. He works with a lot of businesses for many years, and we haven't had any issues.
Yeah, cool. Lauren, anything to add on security?
I'm pretty much going to echo what Joe and Kathy both said. We have an IT guy that we've used for years, so I'll let him deal with that. He's the expert. Right.
Well, we outsourced it until we became a division of Pinnacle Bank. They're a $33 billion bank based here in Nashville, and they have an incredible, being an FDIC insured bank now, incredible security layers. It can be kind of frustrating to get through the various things, but I'm glad we're part of that and were when this happened, so we'd have to try to figure that out on our own. Okay, so the name of this webinar is How to Get Great Results for Your Clients During the Pandemic, or something like that. So that's what it really comes down to, right, is getting great results for your clients. And so I'm going to throw that one out there. We've asked a lot of specifics, but can you talk just generally about how you focused on have gotten great results for your clients through these challenges? Joe?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this in an earlier question. I feel like this whole pandemic really made us focus on quality control. A lot of the volume intakes, the volume signups, the call screening, out of just necessity, it was all kind of stripped away. A lot of the busy work, especially with a plaintiff's model, as we all know, we want to do the best job we can, but as efficiently as we can, because we're not billing by the hour.
Right.
And I feel like when we were in the office, more so than we are now, there was an inclination just to work for the sake of working. And it really kind of forced us to focus on doing the stuff that was absolutely 100% meaningful. And so, we weren't doing all these intakes, but we still had the inventory. We still had the cases to work up. There was a lot of downtime. There's a lot of quiet, and we just kind of honed in on we treated all our cases, with a lot of detail and focus and attention, but especially the ones that were higher stakes, and so a lot of people talk about the 80-20 rule. Well, we were forced to do the 80-20 rule, and this has been our best year, frankly.
Wow. Amazing.
So, I'm really hoping to maintain that kind of business rule of thumb, because it's been really good for us to just focus on the big ones, beef up on experts, really try to do really, really good work. And we had the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people weren't sitting in their car for an extra hour and a half every day and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it definitely has freed up time for all of us. Lauren, what has your firm done to maintain those great results that you've been getting even through these challenges?
A lot of what Joe said, but I think we all found ourselves with some extra time, not in the least because we weren't commuting anymore.
Right.
And for us, we stepped outside of our usual sandbox a little bit. We have a lot of clients who are either business owners or small business owners, or those kinds of. We actually ended up helping a lot of people with their SBA loans. And despite the fact that it's not our usual area of practice, and sort of helping to make sure that all of their needs were met, no matter what their needs were, we really use this time to cement our relationships with our clients and to really focus in on the bigger picture and what do they need and what can we help them with, even if it's not the primary thing we're doing for them, right? And I think in the long run, that's been really great for us. It's really strengthened those relationships. I'm getting a lot of referrals off of some of those people because everybody knows somebody, so
Right.
it's been, and it feels good to help people, right? That's why we do this. So
absolutely.
But for us, we've really taken the time to focus in on hearing our clients and making sure their needs are met. So that's been the biggest thing.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. Kathy, anything you've been doing during these challenges to focus on those results?
I think that, a lot of what we're doing in terms of working toward early resolution and getting cases settled and getting those off the table has really not changed. We're conducting our meetings by Zoom when we have to, depositions by Zoom when we have to,
Right.
and then obviously following social distancing guidelines when we can't. I would take the question a step further, though. I think that one of the things that I think we've done really well during this is, number one, putting out information and disseminating information about things like the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So it's a lot of information that a lot of people don't really and still have very many questions about. So we try to blog at least once or twice a week to sort of boil down what's new, what's different, what do you need to know, what do you need to ask for, what do you need to expect, and just really trying to be an information source for our clients. I think the other thing that we've done well during the pandemic is, again, back to the intranet. If we've got a deposition now, somebody can jump on the internet and say, hey, somebody do some quick research for me. I got this question. And that really helps, negotiations to go more smoothly and gives us, a jumping off point if it's something that is, comes up that wasn't expected. And the other thing is all the phone calls that we handle at intake. Our attorneys on intake are fantastic at, not just screening the case to see if it's something we want to take, but really doing a lot of hand-holding with people. It's a bad situation for everybody. People have lost their jobs. They don't feel good about really anything. Some of them don't have anywhere to turn. Unemployment's being held up. They don't understand why they don't have their money yet. So really a lot of hand-holding and explaining, and if there's something we can help with, if we discover a workers' comp injury or something like that, then trying to give that case to somebody who can help at least with a piece of what's going on, if not all of what's going on. But mostly I think just being an information source. We put up resource pages on our website about housing assistance and loans. We helped other firms with the PPP application and information about that, which, like Lauren said, has netted us a lot of referrals from those firms. So really just trying to be helpful to everybody, not just our clients too, but really just to everybody and people who become our clients.
Well, that's the thing I like about being in our industry is I consider us to be on the good guy side of the courtroom. I really do. And you are people who help people all day. And you got to make a living somehow. Why not do it helping people? So thank you all for the work that you do in your community. Well, that's my list of questions. Does anybody have anything they want to add? I don't see more from viewers right now. So we'll probably wrap up here in a moment. Let me put some information up on contact info. Information for our viewers. You will receive a link to a recording of this webinar, so you can watch it at your leisure. And so you'll also be able to see the contact slides. So here's Joe's contact information. And this is Kathy, justiceatwork.com. And you'll be able to pause the recording if you don't have it. We'll try to put it in the text below the video as well. There's Lauren's information. And then lastly, I wrote the only book ever published to help plaintiff lawyers navigate the finance markets. And it's called How David Beats Goliath. And if you'd like a copy, an ebook, I'm happy to send you a copy. You can reach me through Advocate Capital through my contact page there, or call our toll-free number. Once again, this webinar was brought to you by Advocate Capital. More information is at advocatecapital.com. And for more of our content, lawpracticechannel.com. But we actually have another question here. So let's get to that. Let me bring us back on screen. There we go. Do you use a virtual receptionist that you would recommend? Do you use a virtual receptionist you would recommend? Any of you use one?
And by virtual receptionist,
Well,
they just third-party answering service.
Yeah, whatever you do. Let's just ask this. What do you do to have your phones answered? How are you handling it? Lauren, would you go first?
Okay, well, so now, like I said, we have a customized system. We have our own call centers. When we were smaller, we've probably tried everything out there, close to everything out there.
Yeah.
You know, you can go with something like Ruby Reception, which is pretty automated. You can find, there's local call centers. We use one called Dexcom. They're based out of Louisiana, and they're great.
Dexcom.
Yeah,
Okay.
DEXCOMM. I like them. Jed Antunes, my guy over there.
Okay. Shout out to Jed.
You can, yeah. We've used, like for the website, we've done some of those, like that 24/7 chat services. I think we use Client Chat Live. That I really like. That's not, that's very affordable for, I think, even a solo prac, and it's, that's been very useful having that. I mean, we used Ruby, they were fine. I think they all do a lot of the same things. So that sounds terrible, but.
Well, answering the phones. Yeah, we used Ruby for a while. We didn't like it. They didn't do it very well for us. We had a lot of specific needs though. Kathy, anything to add on virtual receptionists or answer service?
Yeah, one of the things that we actually did this year and moving to our new phone system is sort of eliminate the virtual receptionist that you hear when you call in, because we really want people to get to a live person. And then for intake, we have our own call center as well. But for those overflow calls, because we've got so many calls recently that there's just no way that we can answer all of them 100% live. I have an intake answering service that I use through lawyer.com that I cannot recommend enough. They are, I also looked at Ruby Receptionist and some other answering service, but this one is specific to intake. And I got in on the ground floor with them, so I was able to develop a set of parameters that I wanted them to go by in handling calls. And it's great. And now we've automated a lot of things that push to them and let them push into our document system. So it's just been really, really good. And I think if you have a premium profile with them through lawyer.com, you'll also get some leads depending on your area. We tried the Client Chat Live, but for our kind of cases, it wasn't a good fit.
Great. So lawyer.com. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Fantastic. Joe, anything to add on virtual receptionist services?
Yeah, we used My Receptionist in the past. We weren't crazy about it. I had my wife make a couple of dummy calls just to test it out. And, it's clearly someone that is not a member of your office. So we stopped working with them. During the pandemic, when we were doing that rotational system, so we missed a couple of calls, but someone would be assigned to checking voicemails constantly, and everyone has a setup where voicemails go directly to your iPhones, and everyone has their iPhone on their person nowadays. Yep. So we were in really good communication with checking voicemails. If this is a new intake, someone call it back, and so that's what we did. And not to sound like a broken record, but you know, we stopped placing so much emphasis on we need to capture every call that's made, and more that like, let's focus on building our reputation and our track record. And if they really want to work with you, they're going to work with you. And let's not go crazy trying to, you know, capture every call. And so
Fair enough.
that's what we've been doing.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Well, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you very much for the time that you're spending with us today, but also for the time you spent preparing and thinking about the questions. It's much appreciated. It was great to get perspective from different parts of the country, but also different types of practices and different sizes, because there are different approaches to those things, right? So we're just about going to wrap up our broadcast. Anybody have a good icebreaker recommendation for a Zoom meeting? Okay.
If you want to get really out there, there is, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it. There is a nonprofit. They are a goat farm in California, and you can rent a goat. You can either rent a goat for 15 minutes to come on your Zoom chat with you, or you can take your entire Zoom meeting on a tour of the goat farm. It's actually, they've set it up as a nonprofit. So I found this crazy article on the internet. I keep threatening to bring a goat to my partner meetings.
Yeah.
So,
one of our VPs has a charitable 501(c)(3) farm that he and his wife manage, and they have goats and they have turkeys and all that kind of stuff. So maybe
get a goat on your next Zoom.
On the next one. We had a pig on there accidentally one time in the background. You could hear it, you know. Well, here's what I'll share with you. One of our VPs, Tina, was in charge of the icebreaker. So she said, okay, before we start, okay, everybody get your phone and hold it up. Okay, now point it down at your feet and take a picture, right? And then hold it up to your camera. So we got to see what everybody was wearing, you know, from the waist down in their shoes, to see who was wearing, you know, shorts or flip-flops or whatever. So it was a pretty easy, fun icebreaker. All right. Well, I want to thank you all again so much for being our special guest today, and thank you for the work that you do in your communities to help people, but also to make the world a better and safer place, because that's what plaintiff lawyers do. And that's going to be it for now. I'm Mike Swanson for the Law Practice Channel. Thank you for joining us. And we'll try to put information on how to reach out to our guests, if you'd like to, in the text below this video once we publish it. Bye, everybody. Have a great one.
Cool.
Bye, y'all.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.